Hello and welcome. I'm Suma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has also now departed for the SCO summit, confirming bilateral meetings with President Putin, Maldivian President Muhammadu Muizu, Cambodian Prime Minister, Laotian Prime Minister, and Vietnamese Prime Minister, while Russian President Vladimir Putin is to attend the SCO summit in Tianjin, joining other leaders from 20 and more nations. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin blasted Western sanctions, saying Moscow and Beijing jointly oppose discriminatory trade restrictions. This comes ahead of his August 31st to September 3rd visit. Putin, who will attend a regional summit and military parade, noted that China remains Russia's biggest trading partner amid mounting economic pressures from the Ukraine war. US President Donald Trump has vowed to take his legal battle over tariffs to the Supreme Court after an appeals court ruled that most of the duties he imposed on imports were illegal. President Donald Trump has slammed the decision as incorrect on his Truth Social platform, declaring that the United States of America will win in the end. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz have vowed to step up pressure on Russia, warning of new sanctions if President Vladimir Putin fails to meet Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky for talks, and have announced additional air defense support for Ukraine after a Russian strike on Kyiv killed 25 people yesterday. The White House has said that President Donald Trump is still pushing for a Putin-Zelensky peace summit, despite French President Emmanuel Macron warning that Trump risks being played by the Russian leader. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller has dismissed Macron's comments as absurd, insisting Trump is working steadfastly. The former leader of Bolivia's Civic Committee of Potosi, Marco Pumari, has been released from prison and placed under house arrest after nearly 4 years behind the bars without trial. Pumari, a key political figure in the region that holds the world's largest lithium reserves, retains significant influence according to media reports. At least 3 people have been killed in a fire set by protesters at a council building in Makassar in Indonesia, following nationwide demonstrations over the death of a local motorbike taxi driver who was run over by a police car. The violence marked a sharp escalation of public anger, with protests spreading across the country. The United Nations Security Council have begun talks on a draft resolution to expand the international force in Haiti as armed gangs tighten control over Port-au-Prince, displacing 1.3 million people and driving famine-level hunger. The US and Panama are pushing to remodel the operation based on voluntary contributions. The 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, also called the SCO Summit, opens in Tianjin this week, bringing together leaders to tackle regional security, counterterrorism, trade, energy, digital cooperation, and food security. The agenda also includes cyber defense, air artificial intelligence, and formalizing Belarus's membership. This is the largest SCO summit ever, with more than 20 leaders attending, among them host Xi Jinping, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Russia's Vladimir Putin, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Iran's Masoud Pezeshkian, Indonesia's President Prabowo Subianto, Malaysia's President Anwar Ibrahim, Vietnam's Pham Minh Chinh, Pakistan's President Shehbaz Sharif, Nepal's KP Sharma Oli, Maldives President Mohammad Muizu, and Myanmar's military chief Min Aung Hlaing. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and many other international officials will also be present. The summit also comes amid sharp global conflicts and tensions between members themselves, including China, India, Russia, and Iran. Leaders will seek to use the platform to strengthen cooperation on energy, security, and digital threats, while positioning the SCO as a counterweight to Western blocs like NATO. And NewsX World is currently on the ground with senior executive editor Megha Sharma, currently in Tianjin, China. Let's query into what she has said. Hi Megha, thank you for joining us. She's joining us as a senior executive editor of NewsX World. She's joining us live from Tianjin. Megha, what more can you tell us about SCO Summit?
Right, I'm standing right here, Asuma, and Tianjin in China. Tianjin is, just to give an estimate to our viewers, about 200 kilometers away from Beijing. And it takes about a couple of hours drive from Beijing to Tianjin to arrive in this post-coastal city of China. One of the biggest, largest cities of Asia, and also the second most powerful country of the world. Now, it is interesting to note that all these world leaders who are part of the SCO summit, the 10 member countries are going to be descending over here. Key amongst them is, of course, going to be President Putin, the Russian president, who will be arriving over here. He'll be arriving here tonight itself. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India is going to be arriving over here around 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 6 p.m. local time, Beijing time. Of course, there is expectation that the Iranian Prime Minister is going to be over here. Putin-Pezeshkian, who is Iranian. Iran is also part of the SCO summit, one of the 10 member states of the SCO summit. Besides that, other Central Asian countries, including Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, they all are going to be present and be in attendance at the 25th SCO summit that takes place in the next couple of days. Preparations are on. In fact, the building and the big globe that you see behind me is actually the very venue where all these heads of states are going to descend tomorrow at to convene for the SCO summit. So Xi Jinping, who is the president of China and also is going to be hosting all these leaders, is going to be welcoming them, holding a lot of on the side bilateral meetings are likely to take place as well. There is already an announcement that has been made that Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India is going to be holding a bilateral with Xi Jinping. There is already an announcement that has been made by the Russian Kremlin that there is going to be a bilateral between the president of Russia and his counterpart of China. Besides that, there is a likelihood of a bilateral taking place between Russia and India as well. But I think the SCO summit is going to be overshadowed by the Trump tariffs that have completely brought about a turnaround in the way the world functions, in the way the world trades. So there are going to be talks, in all likelihood, expected in a position to build these relationships, trade relations, economic ties between all these SCO member nations, to build resilient supply chains, to build resilient markets that will not have to be entirely dependent on the American markets that have actually brought its guards up and lifted up tariffs so as not to allow foreign goods to enter into its markets before paying that extra 25% or 15% or 10%, whatever is the tax levied on each of these countries and their goods that were erstwhile being exported to United States of America without any tariffs. So that is going to be the big focus. That is going to be the overarching line of what the theme of this SCO summit is going to be. But also talking about the Ukraine-Russia war, also talking about the Gaza conflict. They are all are going to be discussions that are going to be held by the leaders when the summit begins tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Megha Sharma, for joining us live from Tianjin and giving us all the important updates live from Tianjin. Thank you very much. Now we move on. The Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, along with several others, have already arrived in China for the SCO summit in Tianjin. Also in attendance is UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, highlighting the SCO's growing global profile. Meanwhile, Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has departed Kathmandu for a 5-day visit to China, where he will join the summit and meet with President Xi Jinping and other leaders. But the spotlight is on the upcoming meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping, their first in-person engagement on Chinese soil since the 2020 border clash. The talks carry deep regional and global significance as both sides seek stability amid ongoing tensions and shifting of geopolitical currents. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. He's a former Indian ambassador, joins us live from New Delhi. And we have another guest, Professor Jim Rice. He's a professor of international law, joins us live from Vigan, Philippines. Thank you both for joining us today. Now, I would like to ask Ambassador for your opinion on, with this SCO summit drawing diverse leaders from Belarus to Egypt to Nepal, covering Middle East, Central Asia, as well as countries in Asia and even Europe. Now, how is China leveraging this platform to reshape current global geopolitical alliances? What is your take?
I think the summit is perhaps the most important in SCO history. There have been 25 summits, and this has had the maximum attendance. As you know, and you've already mentioned, SCO is a 10-member organization, but 20 heads of states or governments are participating, including many of the dialogue partners and so on. So it shows the catchment area of the summit has increased, and it has partly to do with China and President Xi Jinping. But in the main, I would like to attribute it to one person who's not going to be there, Donald Trump. He's worked ceaselessly for past 6 months through his tariff war wolfism to have alienated as many countries and heads of states as possible. So those people are gravitating to this event in the hope that there would be it would coalesce around some alternative which deflects the tariff wars and is the return to the globalism and multilateralism, law abiding international commerce and politics. China is leveraging that to foist its own credentials as an alternative to United States unpredictability. It portrays itself now as a liberal, rule-abiding country which is responsible, etc. But the event would need to show China's optics going beyond mere photo opportunities and statements, but doing something concrete. Now, this would also provide, in my estimation, China to recalibrate the BRI initiative, under which it is extending the infrastructure between China and about 130 countries all over the world. Now, that has become a bit unyieldy, and China would like to focus it on Eurasian space, to which SCO belongs. So to that end, infrastructure initiatives, market initiatives, etc., might be announced.
Yes.
Another motive that China may have is to find alternative markets to the United States market, which is progressively becoming more difficult for us to leverage. So perhaps some other initiatives, buyer's credits, etc., could be announced by the Chinese side at this summit. Already, it has come in past 25 years a long way uh,
Yes.
from Shanghai's 5 to SCO. Shanghai 5, as you know, was focused only on post-Soviet Union, Central Asian border and defense issues.
Yes.
This has now been
Mm,
expanded, and it's going to be further expanded at SCO in Tianjin. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing that. I would also like to take our other guest, Professor Jim Rice. Professor, how is China now leveraging this platform to reshape global geopolitical alliances, especially in the context of a shifting world order away from Western-led institutions?
Well, thanks for having me on,
Thank
Suma.
you.
First of all, I completely agree with the ambassador. In a sense, he took the words right out of my mouth. That Trump is kind of the elephant in the room, as it were, in the sense that Trump has damaged and upset not only the trade relations with other countries in the world, but also internationalism itself and multilateralism. He's done this in a number of ways, and this has only benefited the PRC in a way that is completely unnecessary, because the PRC, People's Republic of China, is a country that really doesn't have friends. I'd like to really point out that China has supplicants and China has enemies, but China does not really and has never really built up a network of allies. The problem, however, is that Trump is systematically disrupting and undoing America's alliances that it's built up over the last 80 years.
And thank you, Jim, Professor Jim, for sharing that. Now I would go back to Ambassador. Ambassador, what do you think that this engagement of Xi Jinping and Modi will influence regional stability in South Asia?
That's an interesting question. Both sides have made sympathetic noises in the past few days. Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in Delhi, and he was received by the Prime Minister, who accepted the invitation. Prime Minister Modi is traveling to China for the first time in 7 years. And this itself is more significant, perhaps, than his attendance at any SCO summit. Bilateralism is the key here, and meeting with President Xi would be seminal in this regard. We, from Indian perspective, would be looking for China to make gestures that would ameliorate the past tensions and reservations that India has developed. We would be looking for something like peace on the border, resumption of negotiations for the border delineation, reduction in forces, supply bottlenecks to Indian to the goods such as rare earth magnets, etc., being removed from by the Chinese side. Pakistan being curbed by not supplying that kind of lethal equipment that were used against India in the May conflict. And there would be other expectations of greater balance in the bilateral trade, which you know, India has the largest trade deficit with any country with the PRC. which is at the level of $100 billion. So all these put together would be the list of expectations. I think Chinese would have their own list of expectations about Dalai Lama, about India not perceiving China as an antagonistic power, etc., etc. And there would be some attempt to corral India into RIC, Russia, India, China coalition to gang up against the United States. I expect this to be resisted by India. There would be some accommodation, but at the same time, India is not known to be interested in extreme powers, extreme positions. So United bridges with the United States that have been built over past 3 decades are likely to remain without this summit being able to block them. So I suppose this visit to China by Prime Minister and his summit with Chinese President are extremely important events and worth watching. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both our guests for joining us and sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion. And now we stay on this topic. Political leaders and scholars from Asia are looking forward to the upcoming Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit set to take place in the northern Chinese port city of Tianjin from August 31st. The gathering, expected to be the largest in the organization's history, is said to be attended by leaders of more than 20 countries, where Chinese President Xi Jinping will host Russian President Vladimir Putin, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Turkish President Erdogan, and other leaders. Secretary General of United Nations Antonio Guterres is also to be there at the summit. There are reactions from all corners of the globe. Let's listen into what Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has said on SCO.
Для нас очень важно быть, как вы сказали, в этой семье. На заседании ШОС будут присутствовать больше 20 глав государств. Это, я вам скажу, ведущих государств в мире. И быть в этой семье не просто почетно, это, конечно, приятно, почетно, это вдохновляет любой народ, в том числе и белорусский, что их президент находится в этой солидной семье, давайте откровенно говорить, которая сегодня во многом определяет развитие.
President of Tajikistan Emomali Rahmon also made a statement before departing for Tianjin. Let's hear it what President Rahmon has said.
در عرصه جهانی شانس یک از کشور پنجگانه و یک سازمان بسیار بزرگی بین المللی مبادل گردید.
Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is also to attend the summit. Let's listen into what Pakistan's Minister Ehsan Iqbal has said.
SCO summit, and we are very pleased that now China will be hosting it, and Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Shehbaz Sharif, will attend this summit. Our region has seen a lot of uncertainty in the past, so I think it is important that the leadership in SCO summit must ponder how we can de-escalate conflicts.
Scholars from diverse backgrounds are also looking forward to the summit. Let's listen into what Sergei Sanakoyev has said about the SCO meeting.
Прежде всего, взаимоуважительный диалог, во-вторых, добрососедство, взаимовыгодное развитие. Вот сегодня эти принципы больше всего объединяют страны ШОС, встреча лидеров Шанхайской организации сотрудничества в конце августа в городе Тяньцзинь приобретает очень громко.
Now, for this discussion, we go back to our guest, Professor Jim Rice. He's a professor of international law, joins us live from Wigan. Thank you, Professor, for staying with us. Now, looking at some leaders' comments and also knowing that Prime Minister Modi prepares to meet President Xi for the first time since the 2020 border clash, what strategic priorities do you think India will bring to the table, and how does New Delhi view the role of the SCO?
Well, obviously, India is a very important player in this. India is one of the main countries in the world in this regard, and I think it should be borne in mind that India's interests are not really those of the PRC, nor are they those of Vladimir Putin, who, by the way, is an indicted war criminal. So it seems to me that India has got a lot of leverage, has got a lot of clout in this, and India should bring pressure to bear. I'm glad that the ambassador mentioned the issue of the Dalai Lama and religious freedom in the PRC, which China simply will not tolerate and will not allow. And I think that India, as the world's largest democracy, should bring pressure to bear on the PRC in this regard.
Thank you very much, Professor Jim Rice, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you on our next discussion as well. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin will hold a meeting with Iran's President Pezeshkian on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in China. It is expected that the talks will include Iranian nuclear program. This is significant as it comes at the time when there are talks of nuclear deal between Iran and Western powers. Iran faces the threat of reimposition of sanctions from Western powers unless it agrees to negotiate on the nuclear deal. The cooperation between Russia and Iran has increased significantly in the past few years. The increased defense cooperation and talks regarding the nuclear program with Russia is significant. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Professor Jim Rice. He's a professor of international law. Thank you, Professor, for staying with us. Now, with Putin and Pezeshkian expected to discuss Iran's nuclear program at the SCO summit, what role can the SCO play in influencing or circumventing Western-led nuclear negotiations and sanctions frameworks? What do you think?
Well, sorry, can you just summarize that question again, please?
What role do you think that Putin and Pezeshkian will discuss about Iran's nuclear program at this summit?
I really don't think that Putin has got much to contribute to Iran's nuclear issue and to any kind of non-proliferation in this area. To sum up, not much.
Do you think that them being in China together, does it reshape the strategic landscape in the Middle East in any way, or challenge Western efforts to isolate Tehran?
I think Tehran needs to be engaged at this point. My view is isolation. Although the sanctions should remain in place, I think that engagement is key to try and get Iran to try and come to an agreement in terms of the nuclear issue.
Thank you very much, Professor Jim Rice, for always joining us and sharing your insight from Wigan. Now, this is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.